The first one is great story, super.
Yeah,
I
very tasty.
love, I love when companies, I love when people who are successful in industry go, I'm going to swing for the fences. And they end up putting the bat right in their face, right? It's one of those where they throw the bat and it ricochets into their face. And if it's a
Yeah.
dude, it ricochets into his crotch. In this case, Meg Whitman, the former CEO of eBay, she's old school. She's from the era of CEOs when CEO was a job because we're in the era of entrepreneurship where it's founder CEOs, right?
Right.
Very rarely are we seeing. I mean, Eric Schmidt being because he was a CEOs of Google for a while, but this is a good one. Katzenberg,
Katzenberg.
Katzenberg,
Yeah.
yeah, Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Yeah.
Was he a Disney guy, right?
Well, not only a Disney, well, not only just, you say just a Disney guy, this is the guy that produced Lion King, Little
Yep,
Mermaid, Beauty and
correct.
the Beast.
He's a
Big,
content guy.
he's a
He's a
content
con-
guy.
he understands content. And
100%.
so we're this is Quibi, of course. We're talking about the quick bites. It's a portmanteau of the word quick bites, and it's
Does anybody know Quick Bite? Like, if I said, hey, you remember that company Quick Bites? Would anybody at this point actually not know it as Quibi?
no. I don't think that anybody would understand. I don't think anybody knows what the frick Quibi is.
Well, and we're not gonna know at this point either.
Yeah. So like this was an unsuccessful endeavor on the part of. I think they raised $1 billion,
One
and
point seven billion dollars is the
we
ultimate
talked
number.
and we talked a lot. We talked a lot about different business, different ventures that have raised venture capital, and with crazy valuations, with no product behind it that makes any sense. This is different in the sense that it had a team that was seasoned in their industry, right? They had veterans. This isn't Adam Newman. This isn't Elizabeth
No.
Holmes. This isn't I forget the other guy,
Well, but this is no
Trevor
shell,
Milton.
right? They
What's
wanted
that?
to make a company. They made a company.
Yes.
I look. You have, what was Quibi's idea? Quibi's idea was, we're going to follow on the back of people using their cell phones and tablets to consume information, right? In the very beginning, until way too late, you could not access Quibi through a television. It was 100% on mobile platforms unless you went a third party route, right?
Yeah. And the other thing too is they had actually legitimate technological advancement because they had designed it to where you could watch it if you moved your phone vertical versus horizontal. There was different and listen, they made meaningful, not throwaway. It's a feature, not it's a bug, not a like. They made actual legitimate features in the service that wasn't just content,
That
and it
ultimately people
wasn't
will
just
use. Other companies, Netflix and everybody else, will
go
go, hey, I'm going to buy that. Roku is currently in the process
talks to
of
buy the content.
buying the content because, again, mobile was their big deal. Unique content was their other big deal. They wanted to use unique content combined with movie stars and big names to create unique content and then give it in bite-sized information. They were going to do it like the chapter books, right? Here's a
Yeah,
10-minute, 15 segment of a hour-long TV show, whatever it would be.
and listen, the concept, and in Silicon Valley, because there's so much freaking money. There is this there's a I forget what the guy what the investor's name was, but he said something like it's solutionism, right? It's a
Right.
solution searching for a problem. And on some level this feels like that, but I do think there is a reality of like, okay, I'm waiting 15 minutes cuz Big Man and I are supposed to meet somewhere and he's running late cuz he has 3 kids, and I'm going to watch 10 minutes of this thing,
Right.
right? And there's an essence of that is not solutionism, right? That is a legitimate, like they're trying to actually solve a problem. The issue is, dude, like, am I paying for it? On top of that, like,
Well, and that's the other
when they
thing. They
launched,
competed themselves directly, being a paid subscription service. They put up right up against YouTube, right up against TikTok, right up against these other free platforms. Now, not the same content, right? Not up directly, but you can. I can at any given time, if I'm waiting on you for 10 minutes at the restaurant, as you just said, oh, by the way, Dos Equis is part of the reason they say they failed, right? Because people went heavily to television, right, types of things
because
during
listen,
this time frame.
I know people that didn't have televisions in their homes because they're like, well, I'm here a couple hours a day. I don't really need a TV. I go to a movie theater to see a movie, this, that, and the third. They're buying TVs. They're buying homes. Okay.
Right.
I know city dwellers who are moving to the burbs, even after, because a lot of my friends are still back in Minneapolis, even after that city kind of did a little bit of burning down. Well, after there's no rhyme or reason beyond the effects of Dos Equis. I think we're not even to the point where we can calculate its effect.
Oh,
right?
absolutely
on,
not.
On
They'll
the
be
psyche
crunching
of the
those
consumer.
numbers for a decade, right?
Right.
They'll be crunching those numbers for a decade.
On the psyche of the consumer, especially when it comes to content, here's the biggest problem I think Quibi had. This is a low barrier market in the sense that a TikTok does not require $1 billion budgets, multi-million dollar budgets. It requires teenagers in their bedroom doing the act. Like, I was raised going to church as a young man. I still go when I can, but I'm just saying, like, as a young, being raised in an evangelical church growing up, I felt like, dude, we had all the songs and all the songs had actions to go with them.
Sure.
Like, 90s era evangelical kids are perfectly poised to be on TikTok and killing it, but we're not. But I'm just saying.
You'd be surprised. There is a decent amount. You'd be surprised. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, it's that low barrier, because when the community is creating content, it's free, and the platform just hosts the content. They push the content. So when you're manufacturing, when you're the content creator, and I get where they're coming from, so you don't end up like a Netflix, you don't end up like a Hulu or whatever, where you're battling out for. Netflix paid $100 million for that last year of carrying Friends.
Well, and Quibi definitely said, look, we're having a hard time, even with the $1.7 billion in. That was one of, look, they did this whole rundown in the last couple of weeks of, here's why we think we failed, right? And one of them was definitely, how do you compete with Netflix and HBO Max and all these other people with these almost unlimited budgets to create content? But HBO Max, Disney, Netflix, they had one thing that this company was never going to have, which I think put them in a category where it was going to be almost impossible from the start, and that's content from the get-go. HBO Max and Netflix and Disney, they've been putting out movies and shows for a long time. Their library is massive. Right.
So that's the thing, is like they had a deep catalog that there is even if it's a small audience, it's an audience that, for instance, if you love mafia movies or TV shows, like, I still love watching this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. And I have a chameleon accent. So let's say I'm talking with Big Man for 15 minutes. I start talking like he does, I start sounding like Joel Osteen.
Yeah, you do.
But I start watching The Sopranos and I go, oh, frickin', I'm just saying, like, you have a deep catalog of content, whereas Quibi is starting from scratch.
Yes.
And the thing is, a TikTok, even though TikTok didn't really start from scratch, it acquired Musical.ly, and that's really its entree into the American market. They have millions of users, and the users generate the content, and then the users consume the content. So their pipeline is different. So these guys are coming into it with all the disadvantages of a traditional platform, while all the disadvantages of not having a content catalog. So they don't have users generating content. They don't have whatever. I'm wondering, do you think if Roku buys them, they're just acquiring the content? Do you think they buy the app as well for all the technology it offers? Because at the end of the day, Roku is a technology company, and its first product was the set-top box. Then they have their own TVs.
Right.
Now they make a speaker.
I think Quibi does. I think Quibi, like a lot of companies that break down or fail or whatever, it would be in their best interest. And look, all the people that involved in this, Katzenberg or whatever, they'll all end up making money off of this, even though the company fails. And that's exactly how they'll do it. Is they're going to turn around and Roku's going to buy their content, or somebody will, because again, we live in a world. You and I talked about this streaming world, good content, and that was one of the things that they said Quibi failed is they partnered with some of these movie stars or whatever, and then didn't put out great content. The writing wasn't there. So you have marginal content, nothing that ever caught on and became a great show or anything like that. Roku wants that content because it's unique. It's not something they have. And then I think whether it's Roku or someone else will buy that technology piece of it, and you piece it out. Why not sell that part of it to Netflix or somebody else? Sell your content to Roku.
Yeah, this is like a 90s like KKR style where they're just going to split this thing up, move everything across different, and split it up and sell the parts of it.
You'd make the parts are worth more money than the collective, right? Quibi did not make any money. Sell the content to Roku. Roku's not a huge company like an Amazon Prime or, you know what I mean, Netflix. Right. Sell your content to them because they're willing to give it to you just because it's easy. And then take that technology, sell it to Amazon, sell it to Netflix, sell it to somebody.
And I do think an Amazon might be the right player for them, or it could be even HBO, because HBO is backed by AT&T, and I do think they're making a strong play into the and this is like AT&T had tried a similar concept with Go 90, which was like a similar 10-minute. So this isn't the first time this concept failed.
Well, YouTube tried it with RedTube a little bit, right? And YouTube A.
Nope. No. The YouTube Red. RedTube is something different.
I'm sorry. YouTube Red.
Which
apologize.
is now YouTube Premium.
Yes. But they eventually, that first idea was get Casey Neistat and some of these other people to make longer content that they could create and piece out to people or whatever. Right. And it really didn't catch on. I think YouTube's still trying to find that groove of getting people to pay for a TV channel. Right?
Yeah, and so I have YouTube Premium. I love it. I've had it for years. I get YouTube Music with it as well. I love it simply because I'm not going back to watching ads on YouTube. So,
but that's what you're paying for. I subscribe to the higher price version of Hulu for the same reason. I don't want to sit in and watch commercials or whatever. That's different than, hey, I want your unique content.
Because all of YouTube Premium's unique content got split up and moved to other platforms.
Right.
Their hit was Cobra Kai. And honestly, I think YouTube Premium was the only person who was going to pay for Cobra Kai.
Which is owned by Netflix now, right? And
Netflix acquired Cobra Kai. They had another show, I forget what it was called, and it was controversial. And I watched the first season. It was really good. I forget what it was. It was just some 17-year-old kid just going on a rampage doing violent stuff. Burns down his house. It was good. It was a fun show.
Well, and Dude Perfect got bought out by some cable channel, right? Dude Perfect had the show on YouTube.
Rob Dyrdek.
Yeah, and then so back to Quibi though. I think so when you start going down the why this company failed, I think another one of them is, and you and I have talked about this before, and it's one of my favorite things about business in the last several years, and this is another company that's a great example of how not to do it, is you, especially in the beginning of creation, business, content, whatever, have to be nimble. You have to be ready to take feedback or whatever. And according to several things that I read, this Katzenberg guy came in with this huge ego and said, no, hey, I've created Lion King. I've created all these things. I'm the man. I'm saying this is going to work. And by the time it wasn't working, and he's like, no, it's going to work. It's going to work. And by the time they started changes, it was just too late. It was just too late.
And that's where I see, or that's where in this story, I feel the solution in search of a problem. Because I know the market, right? the reality is you don't got a daggum clue. And not to be ageist, but the entire board of this company is a bunch of old people. They're trying to
Not to
pitch
be
to young.
ageist, but not to. Anytime you say not to be fill in blank here, but you're about
Yeah,
to be that. You're ageist. You're saying that old people, in this case, had no connection to the consumer, which was really what 18 to 35-year-olds probably.
I don't know. I think what from what I garnered, it was more like 25 to 40 year olds, right? That elder millennial to Gen X generation,
Right.
where they're commuting, they're getting on a train, they're getting on a bus, right? And the
Yeah.
reality, maybe what they didn't think about, and this is what Katzenberg, why he knew too much, right? And there is no greater problem in your executive office if your CEO knows everything,
Well,
right?
not just the
And there's
CEO, but the people controlling what happens.
exactly,
Right.
the people guiding the direction of your business, of a startup especially, if they know too much, I think you're doomed. Because you have to have somebody who's going to sit back and go. And that's why everybody loves Elon Musk. He goes where the market is,
Hmm.
right? But on some level, he's creating the market because the dude probably does a ton of peyote. But,
Among
but
other
I'm,
things.
among other things, but I'm just saying, like, his brain is not stuck in the office, you know?
Right.
And to Meg Whitman's credit, she took eBay from nothing to something. Then it got just homicided by Amazon, right? And she was
Hmm.
so in some sense she seems like a short-sighted player in this,
You're always
industry.
brilliant until you're not, right? But again, I think it's nimble. When you get to that kind of greatness, there's this illusion that you will be great forever. The fact is that most millionaires, most billionaires, most companies, and people need to understand this, most CEOs got where they are off of one thing. And everything
Yeah,
else they've milked since then. That doesn't
hundred
mean that
percent.
everything that they have done. You say Elon Musk, okay, by this way, but this past week has now overtaken Jeff Bezos as the richest man in the world, by the way. Again, my
On
point though
paper,
is
yeah,
Elon Musk is definitely one of those guys where you look at a track record, there's a whole lot of mistakes
yeah.
along the
He made a
way,
lot of dumb choices.
right?
A great example of what you're talking about, and then we'll move on to the next story. Is
Hmm.
Mark Cuban.
Yeah,
Mark Cuban took and he fell ass backwards into that $1 billion that he got, right?
into Yahoo, absolutely.
He was sold broadcast.com to Yahoo, and then Yahoo's nowhere, his broadcast.com is nowhere, no one cares about his dumb service. But he took that $1 billion and he milked it.
Oh, absolutely.
And here's the thing, this is the parting line here. This isn't a shot against Cuban or any of these other people.
Mm-mm.
You're only
No,
as good as your last hit.
absolutely. And
You're
that's
only as good as your last at bat. That's a baseball term. I've never watched a baseball game in my life. But you're in the music industry, they always say, listen, man, you're only as good as your last hit. Right?
right.
Credit to them. If you get a hit, if you go chart, good. You're better than 99.99% of the population that never had a hit.
Right, absolutely.
There's people like the COO of Elizabeth Holmes's company, Theranos. The people kind of denigrated him, like, oh, he had a hit in the '90s as a tech guy. Yeah, how many hits did you have ever?
You can ride that forever because
Big goose egg,
most people don't
dude.
have one.
And here's the lesson: flip this thing on its head. You only need to figure out one dumb thing to sell for a couple $100 million, and then you'll figure out where to put the rest of the money, and you'll goof off with the rest of it. And
Hmm.
if that's what you want to do, like, you don't have to go be a serial entrepreneur and be successful
No,
serially,
no.
right? But if you can knock 2 out of 10 out of the park, 20%, you're killing the game.
You're
You're
killing it.
killing the game.
You're killing the game.